Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action, and today we're back once again with the Vampire Coast, who are totally and completely balanced in every single way. Obviously, sarcasm. We're going to be taking on the Beastmen, which is not the best matchup for the Beastie Boys, but let's get to it. Decided to have some fun this time and bring a unit that I had not actually tried yet, which is this boy right here, the Regiment of Renown Necrofex Colossus. It's got a flamethrower, so it does have quite a bit shorter range, but it does a ton of damage. We've got some deck droppers, fell bats to support them up in the air, a line of pike and shot with pistol mobs and pole arms. We've got a couple sirens for some terror, gunnery white for some additional ammo. And yeah, that's pretty much it for my opponent's Beastmen. You can see his Centaurs charging straight into the pistols, taking a little bit of Overwatch fire. These are actually the Sons of Goros Regiment of Renown. We're going to be targeting Noctilus into them. Likewise, we've got Ungor herds. Ungor herds already getting routed off by the flamethrower there. And yeah, we've got some Ungor raiders, a Cygor in the back getting pistol mobbed, Harpies, Beast Lord. We've got a Brave Shaman Lord Wild Gorbel, 2 units of Minotaurs. One of them is the Butchers of Kalkengard, the other is great weapons. But really, the point of this match is to watch that flamethrower, so we're going to try and keep an eye on him as much as possible. The bats are going to move forward and try and screen out those harpies from the deck droppers so that they can go after the Cygor. But this is what we want to watch right here. And I just wanted to point out that this flamethrower does enough damage to actually one-shot these Minotaur unit models. And that's pretty significant, especially against like the Butchers of Kalkengard, for example, who can regenerate. They are currently going with the Gorbel very heavily after Count Noctilus. You can see the balance power has tipped slightly back in my favor. The Beastmen, I don't know why, but for whatever reason, the balance of power will usually start against you if you're playing against the Beastmen, or if you're playing as them, it will typically start in your favor, but things are not necessarily going in the Beastmen's favor here. You can see the flamethrower being unleashed one more. A little bit of friendly fire on the gunnery white there, but he's fine to hold out here for a little bit. Meanwhile, both the Necrofexes are going to be firing into this pocket here. Got Sirens chasing those Minotaurs off. The deck droppers have now been secured and are going after the Cygor. It might take them some time to work him down. But you can see the infantry obviously going to be suffering pretty badly for my Vampire Coast forces. But again, enough missile damage on that flamethrower to one-shot that Minotaur right there. And of course, because these are the Butchers, taking out their unit models is very important, because then they can't regenerate. So Gorbel charges in. He doesn't get a charge on that Necrofex, but again, we're able to flame one more of these Minotaurs down. So I definitely want to experiment a little bit more with this Regiment of Renown Necrofex, especially since with most factions, seeing mass infantry seems to be the way to go in most situations against the Vampire Coast. So the Gallows Giant with the flamethrower will allow you to just clear out a lot of that infantry very, very quickly. Likewise, because it's a big monster, it's relatively hard to take down. Since they fixed its targeting and range in the last patch, I hadn't really used it before then. But yeah, I'm curious to see. I might have to play around with it in a few different other matchups and see how it does here. But you can see the Gorbel is chasing, but we've got the pistol mobs on station. The Gallows Giant, or sorry, the deck droppers here, able to see off the Cygor, not necessarily rout him off, but the zombie pirates are going to be moving forward as well. And again, the Necrofex just flaming there. Count Noctilus trying to stay out of reach of the Butchers and the other Minotaurs and everything, but it's certainly easier said than done. We do have quite a lot of summoned zombies helping out here as well, which of course is, again, totally balanced. But yeah, the Minotaurs aren't long for this world, with the Necrofex firing in here with its nice flamethrower. Just takes out a couple more Minotaur models there, and that's going to be pretty much it. I hope you guys like roast beef. I know this one was a little bit short, so we are going to be taking a look at one more Vampire Coast replay after this. But yeah, Beastmen definitely have a tough time in this matchup. I don't think that my opponent necessarily brought the most optimal build. I do kind of see what he was going for there with the heavy Minotaur rush. Sometimes ranged units with low accuracy actually have a hard time hitting monstrous infantry. So I kind of see what he was going for there, but I do think that there were a few things that you would want to fine-tune about this army selection. First things first is I'd probably grab the Regiment of Renown Cygor over the regular one. It's significantly more accurate. It does magic damage, so if you hit like one of these ethereal units, it will just basically one-shot them. You also have the Warp Gaze, so that if something gets into your back line, which is unlikely with how slow the Vampire Coast are, but something to consider. You can also use that Warp Gaze to pin them in place. Likewise, I'm not the biggest fan of Harpies. I mean, obviously I get contesting the air, but I think it would just be better off to bring Ungor Raiders to shoot, you know, into the air. He did have one unit that was able to do some work. You can see my deck droppers took a little bit of damage, but obviously wasn't going to be enough. And likewise with the Minotaurs, I would definitely recommend bringing the shielded variant. Obviously the Butchers of Kalkengard do have shields, so they're a pretty good pick here. But the regular Minotaurs, if you are going to bring them here, definitely bring the shields. But let's go to the next one, and we'll kind of continue our discussion. We had a look at the Gallows Giant, and this time this build is definitely not a nice build. The idea here was I wanted to see how broken deck droppers still were. After that last game, the pistol variants seem to be still pretty effective. They're not wildly effective. They don't do the most damage in the world. But I wanted to test out the handgun variant and see how they would do, so I've gone with a very heavy flying build here. We've got Luther Harkon up in the air on a Terrorgeist, 4 handgun deck droppers, so the armor-piercing variant this time. Got 2 Fell Bats again to support up in the air, and a whole line of zombies with pikes, a couple with dual weapons. We've got the Gunnery White, once again, nice and tanky, and gives extra ammo up on the Crab. And we've got the Fleet Captain Lore of Vampires with Invocation, Dance Macabre, and the Drowned Dead. Also brought the Black Spot just for one more additional ranged option. My opponent, he's got Big Bird, excellent choice, obviously, against the Vampire Coast with his missile resistance. We've also got Chaos Marauders in the front line, second line of Chosen with the Mirror Guard in the center. We've also got the Demon Spew, a couple of Marauder Horsemen throwing axes, looks like 3 of them. We've also got the Summoners of Rage here as well, so pretty solid build. Definitely like the pick of the Mirror Guard, Chosen with shields, Marauders with shields, all very good pick here. Not the biggest fan of the pick of the Demon Spew because they have relatively low HP and no missile block chance. I don't think Forsaken are really in the best place right now. They haven't really been super competitive in a while. And yeah, you can see they're going to start to get torn apart by those pistol deck droppers, so that's pretty rough. They're already down to less than half HP, so yeah, I think the deck droppers, I mean, granted, this is 2,800 points worth of deck droppers, so, I mean, this is a pretty significant investment, a large portion of my army here, but we'll see. So far, we've been able to do a lot of damage to the Demon Spear. We're going to start focusing now on the Chosen as well. Only one model taken down in those initial volleys, but some good HP damage being done. My opponent's doing what he ought to, maybe not the best micro, but using these Marauder Horsemen to counter the deck droppers is really the only answer he has. He might, in this situation, you probably want to grab them and spread them out as much as possible, like take one unit, you know, send it after these guys, take one unit, send it after these two, maybe take one and send it over here. Or, like he's doing right now, he could potentially try and focus on Luther Harkon. Obviously, he's also a very high-value target, but the mainline engagement just about to get underway here. Gunny, you know, he doesn't need to pull back. He can just sit here and fight. So, yeah, he's going to stand and kind of break this initial charge here, sort of break up the advance. Big Bird also coming through, and Big Bird decides he wants to go after the Fleet Captain, which, yeah, I'm perfectly happy to take this engagement, especially with Hornswaggle and Dance Macabre self-cast on the Fleet Captain here. She will be able to do a number. You can see we do pop that Dance Macabre, and then there's the taunt as well. So Sarthrel goes to 13 melee defense, while the Fleet Captain has 76, pretty much guaranteeing a hit on every attack animation. Likewise, she's got 120 armor, so she'll be able to mitigate a lot of the non-armor piercing damage from Sarthrel. Looks like he used the Plague of Rust on the Gunnery White instead, and also using a Final Transmutation as well. Personally, I think those 2 spells probably should have gone on the Fleet Captain, especially with the Chosen supporting. The Plague of Rust would have allowed them to tear through her a lot more quickly. You can see the Black Spot here firing into the Chosen. Obviously, a lot of those shots are going to be mitigated by those large shields, but once they turn, they'll definitely be able to get some effective fire in. Oh man, look at that headshot. That was brutal. You can see the deck droppers have used up quite a bit of their ammo already, and honestly, the kill totals I'm not too impressed by. We've got 7 here, 8, 11, 13. So yeah, I'm not wildly impressed with the kill totals. I mean, granted, this is a relatively small Chaos Army, but you can see we're firing into the back of the Mirror Guard there. The Chosen have also all taken quite a bit of damage as well. Big Bird's going to come try and disrupt the Black Spot from firing. Obviously, he doesn't want to sit and fight for too long because they do have anti-large. They don't have the best stats in the world, but they can do a little bit of damage to him. Oh yeah, that zombie scream. But Summoners of Rage have actually gotten a hold of the Gunnery White, which is not great for me. Gunnery is going to go ahead and rear charge these Forsaken, but trying to support with the black spot. My idea was to pull him through the black spot and just leave the Summoners of Rage to fight them in melee. Fortunately, it's not quite working out that well, and likewise, a lot of the infantry has been crumbled away, unsurprisingly, by this clearly superior Chaos Infantry. I've been trying to use the Fellbats to chase around the Marauder Horsemen as much as possible once I noticed that they were just set to skirmish mode. If you do notice that somebody's using skirmish mode primarily, you can use that to your advantage by just, you know, exactly like this, taking a very cheap unit and just chasing them way off the map so that they're not contributing to the battle at all. The deck droppers, we did just refill one ammo with the gunnery wipe. He's getting pretty close to going down, so so far I've used 2 of the ammo refills. I don't think I'm going to get the chance to use the other 2 because Gunny is suffering pretty badly here at the hands of these Summoners of Rage and the Chosen and everything. My opponent, I thought this might have been a miscast initially, but after watching it, that Chain Lightning actually did a tiny bit of damage to the deck droppers, so I don't know if that was intentional. He didn't really have a good place to drop it in terms of infantry, just because I don't have a whole lot of infantry left, and there's a risk of him doing friendly fire to his own units if he were to cast it in the infantry fight. So I do sort of understand why he used it on my flyers there, even if it didn't do a whole lot. But yeah, at this point, I had failed to focus the Summoners of Rage before they finished off Gunny, so I'm going to go ahead and focus them now with the handgun mobs up in the air. The handgun deck droppers, I should say. Harkon's going to drop down, and with his Hornswaggle, of course, he is now the only character, or I should say Lord choice, that actually has access to Hornswaggle now. So he definitely can be pretty effective at Lord sniping. Here it is. So he's going to pop that on Big Bird and dive down. Obviously, his other debuffs will help, you know, debuff Winds of Magic and other things for Big Bird. So definitely a very useful situation. Another Plague of Rust on that Fleet Captain, bringing her down to 90 armor, so that those Chosen, again, can do a little bit more damage. Summoners of Rage, thankfully, do get routed off by the handgun deck droppers, but you can see the Marauder Horsemen, when they have a chance to just park and shoot, they do actually do a really good amount of damage to the handguns here. So, despite the fact the balance power very heavily in my favor at this point, my opponent actually has played decently well, all things considered. Just mostly, I would say, the mistakes with the Marauder Horsemen, leaving them on skirmish mode and then you know, just kind of allowing them to get kited around a little bit, I think was the biggest mistake. But I mean, you can see he's cut through just about all of my infantry here. The biggest problem, obviously, is that Harkon is still completely healthy, and he also has, you know, his breath attacks, still quite a bit of ammo on his pistol as well. That being said, if I lose out all my ground forces, then obviously I have to bring something down to the ground in order for me to not suffer leadership penalties. Slongold reducing power recharge, Taunt reducing speed and armor and melee defense and everything. But yeah, that summoned zombies there. One last summoned zombie just got wrecked by that Searing Doom. So Big Bird up to 34 kills so far, not too bad. Gonna go ahead and drop the last breath attack. I didn't catch the other ones, but nope, maybe not. Looks like I'm actually just gonna rear charge here, but the other issue, of course, is that a lot of these Chaos units, Marauders in particular, are not immune to psychology. The Chosen have good enough leadership that they're not likely to terror out, but they are still susceptible to terror. You can see I do still have a tiny bit of ammo on these 2 deck droppers that I had refilled. So there's the difference maker there. You can see these 2 deck droppers are completely out. These 2 still have a little bit of ammo from the Gunnery White. But, yeah. Firing into these Chosen here. They're doing some good rear damage. Let's see, this one's just about got an XP Chevron. That one's pretty close as well. That one's also pretty close. They're all pretty close to picking up an XP Chevron at this point, but these 2 didn't actually do it before they ran out of ammo, so I don't know that that was necessarily wildly cost-effective. It's hard to say. Certainly this was a pretty small Chaos army, but Harkon comes down, drops a quick terror out. We're going to try to save the Fleet Captain for as long as we can, but her fate is pretty much sealed. She's getting pretty close to her healing cap at this point. Not really doesn't really have too much more in the tank. And another Plague of Rust from Big Bird. My opponent has done a great job keeping Big Bird alive. He's got 100 HP, 160 HP, and somehow I just have not been able to make contact. Harkon comes down. Suddenly Big Bird decides to run away again, and he is able to just sneak out here. And another very nicely placed Searing Doom hits just about all those deck droppers there. And with the Fleet Captain just about to give up the ghost here, I don't know, do Undead actually give up ghosts? I'm not sure. But with her going down, I'm going to have to be using the flying units in melee. Obviously, these deck droppers being out of ammo, that makes sense for them to do that anyway. But you can see that the Terror is going to start to become an issue here. Harkon drops one last breath attack, and then we're going to do a nice rear charge here with all these low leadership units. We should be able to get a mass Terror out, and you can see it actually triggers army losses. This mass Terror route just triggers army losses, and now it's just Big Bird left somehow with 100 HP. And this is why somebody was asking me about Big Bird the other day in the comments, I want to say. And he is certainly one of the slipperiest, if not the slipperiest character in the game. He is just obscenely hard to catch. His splash attack, that one right there, and especially the charge animation as well, they sort of almost act like the explosion effect for like Krokar, Queek, the one that Cetra has. It will just, because it just disrupts formations, what you can do is you can charge in, you blow up an entire infantry line, send them all flying, and then immediately run out. And, you know, smaller targets won't be able to follow you through, right? So, definitely like that build for my opponent. Unfortunately for him, the deck droppers were able to be cost effective enough in the late game to pull it out. And of course the Terror from Harkon, really tough for the Warriors of Chaos, but honestly if it weren't for the leadership effects there, I might have lost out. It probably would have been really hard for Harkon to just continuously cycle charge those Chosen, and I probably wouldn't have wanted to do that to my opponent, so I might have just left him in combat anyway if it came down to that. But of course, leadership is a huge aspect of this game, and Undead obviously don't rout, so that gives them a major advantage there, right? They also have map-wide fear, lots of really powerful Terror units. So in terms of deck droppers, after those two games, I think that they're still strong. They're not as overpowered as they used to be, but I do think that they could potentially nerf them a little bit more. Maybe a slight increase in cost, like even a plus 50 increase in cost, I think might be enough to make them balanced. Maybe like a -1 to 2 in reduction to their ammo capacity might also make them balanced. As it is right now, I don't think they're super imbalanced like they were in the last patch, but they are still a little bit overtuned, I think. But yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button, so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. I've got quite a few replays on station, so I'm probably going to be doing 2 videos a day for the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for plenty more content, and we'll see you next time.